Hi guys, and thanks for listening to a new episode of Design and a Half. Today's episode is going to tackle a really interesting subject from my perspective, and that is the one of early adopters of technology. And the reason why I'm saying this is a really interesting topic, so to say, is because the timing of this particular topic, the way it was chosen by me, it was not necessarily accidental but sort of intentional, just because it's really close to the launch date or the announcement date of this new iPhone version. And this sort of told me that I should probably discuss about this because it's part of a larger discussion about technology in general and about the behavior of consumers with regards to new technology and its adoption life cycle. So basically, whenever we're talking about technology and whenever we're talking about basically innovation, especially in the field of technology, we're also thinking about how people behave with regards to technology and the way this technology ends up into the masses. So whenever we're talking about this, we have this sort of segmentation of the population of consumers, and it's sort of split in several ways with regards to as how they behave towards technology. So we have the innovators, the ones which are on the opposite end of the spectrum, which are the ones who are the first ones to actually get a hold of technology. These people, whenever we're talking about the general population, they're usually influencers. They are generally tech people that are doing reviews, and they are always the ones which are getting their hands on first on new technology, whatever the type of technology it is. So in our particular case, when we're talking about for example smartphones, that would be the reviewers. But for example, if we were talking about a specific consumer product, for example an application that is used in production, bleeding edge technology that is used in production, that's probably different in the sense that it's the innovators that are going to use this product are usually the specialists that are always in the search of a new tool which does a specific thing just a little bit better, and they are always looking for that 20% of additional performance that can help them be more efficient or do a certain task faster. However, in case of consumer electronics or consumer goods in general, we have the innovators, we have the early adopters, we have the early majority, we have the late majority, and we have the laggards. Laggards are the people who are really on the tail end of the spectrum and are the ones that are reluctant to adopt new technology, and they usually adopt it after the trend has worn off, or not necessarily in the early stages where it's becoming popular. So if you're looking at this this set of people of technology adopters or consumers, it's like a bell-shaped curve, like an U-shaped curve. You have the innovators at the beginning, and you have the laggards at the end, representing sort of the ends of the spectrum for this specific display or graph, if you will, of adoption. However, we're not necessarily here to talk about how this or how this population is split up and what exactly it is that these people do, because it's pretty clear by definition of these specific segmentations. For example, if you're talking about innovators, these are the ones who are going to be the first to introduce this type of technology into their company. Then you have the early adopters, which are right after them. They're always sort of fitting into that image of people who are looking for new technology to optimize whatever it is that they have in their company, or in their own lifestyle. If we're discussing about consumer electronics, you have the early majority, which is people who are conscious about buying new technology, about how it fits into their overall lifestyle, and especially they're thinking actively about the financial commitments that they have to make in order to have that technology into their lives. You have the late majority, which comes after the early majority and the early adopters, which probably wait for a lot of reviews, wait to see if the technology has proved itself. And usually I'll just give an example. For example, in our situation, the iPhone. So technology like consumer electronics is very, very fickle, in the sense that you have this problem which was largely caused due to the short development life cycle that has happened as of late, that you're just always in a race against the release of a new product. And the problem that this creates is the fact that on one hand you have the situation where you're thinking, if I don't get to the latest iPhone, which is going to, or the latest phone, the latest gadget, the latest iteration of a specific technology, I'm going to cause myself a problem, because I'll have not the latest tech, I'll have late tech whenever I decide to purchase. So example, right now we have the iPhone 12 that just came out. If I decide to purchase the 11 model, I'll be in a situation where I'll have old tech. The problem is that compared to the new iPhone, the old iPhone is not as different in terms of specifications, in terms of what it's capable of doing, and so on. The new iPhone, however, does particular things just a little bit better. But the question is, and this is hugely important for a lot of people that adopt new technology, is are the new enhancements worthy of the additional price? Especially thinking about the fact that this new version has a bunch of problems and a bunch of detractors from it that are causing me some issues. And if you would take two scales and put both phones on the same scale from a technical person's perspective, you would run into trouble. Why? First of all, the old iPhone gives you a charging brick. This new one gives you nothing. So it's basically causing you an additional cost on top of the existing cost of a purchase to get yourself a brick, to get yourself a round magnetic charging pad, and to be able to use it to be able to charge the phone properly. Of course, you would be able to use the cable that's provided to you and add it, for example, to your MacBook charging brick. But I'm not sure if that's okay, just because of the different amp difference between a normal charging brick and a MacBook charging brick. The MacBook charging brick is obviously more powerful than the other one, and the C-type cables have an issue with the amperage, in the sense that they are considerably more dangerous than the old versions like USB type B and A, just because of the wattage and the amperage. The amperage is way bigger on C-type. It's able to produce more juice, which is a reason, from my perspective, of a concern that the charging brick could probably fry my iPhone if I would be charging it via that MacBook charging brick. But getting back to our discussion at hand, the problem is that if you buy this new iPhone right now, you'd be ahead of the game in terms of having the latest technology. However, the one problem is that you don't know whether this technology has proven itself or not. So you're basically not the innovator in this situation, and you're not necessarily the early adopter either. You're rather in the early majority, if there is such a thing in this particular case. Why? Just because you would think about seeing a couple of reviews from other people, thinking, okay, does this thing give me enough juice? Yes, no, whatever. You would have to actually own that product to be able to determine if it's proper for you or not, just because other people's opinions are no longer reliable. And why is this happening? Well, it's happening just because we have social media, and we have the situation where a lot of companies are paying for product reviews, are paying for product influence on image, on how the product behaves, and so on. A lot of people don't do this, obviously, but it still cannot compare to your own sort of experience whenever you're thinking about a specific technology product, to go out there and just take it in your hand and have it for 1 week to be able to use it. So from my point of view, having the ability to buy a product and be able to give it back after 30 days is amazing in some countries, but not all of them have this, unfortunately. Romania is such a country, for example. Like in Romania, I don't think you are able to use a specific technology product and give it back after 30 days after having analyzed it and seen and so on. It's a bit more difficult to do here. I think you only have like 15 days, but I'm not really sure. I would probably have to check on that. Regardless, that was not the point. The point was, if you compare the current phone, which is in a lot of ways interesting, it's exciting, it offers you it gives you new technology to work with and play with. However, if you compare it with the old iPhone, you would see that the differences are quite small. And then you're thinking about the fact that, okay, if I buy this 11 iPhone, this 11 Pro compared to the 12 Pro, I'm making basically an investment, at least for at least 1 to 2 or 3 years. The problem is that if you don't buy the latest technology, like the very, very latest, that investment is a really bad one. For example, if you buy the 11 Pro, obviously depending on your needs, that's clear. But depending on those needs, that could be a bad decision for you or a bad investment, just because its technology could change over time. And the problem is that, for example, in this situation, Apple does not provide you like Android does in comparison with backwards compatible stuff. So some of the software improvements which have been done on the 12, they're never going to be on the 11, even though conceptually speaking and factually speaking as well, those two phones are fairly similar. So the problem that you're going to have is, if you get older tech like the 11, you're going to have to sort of switch to a new version sooner, and then you're going to have this whole problem all over again, but not right now, in like 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. But you're still going to have the same issue, and you're still going to be positioned in the same situation. So in a way, what ends up happening is that companies sort of push the purchase of older tech by adding new technology and by sort of splitting the market in half. You have these people who are always going for the new stuff just because it's new and it offers you that peace of mind that for at least 2 years you're ahead of the curve, or at least 1 year you're ahead of the curve, and then you'll think about this thing again. And for them it's simple because they have this peace of mind that whatever they are choosing is just, it's going to be the latest. Whatever it is, I don't care. I don't care if it breaks. I don't care if whatever, just because I have this super okay Apple service thing and whatever. But for people like me, for example, who are living in a country where Apple is not present and where things like service is much more complicated to get for an Apple product, and you have to use third-party services, which are oftentimes expensive, they're oftentimes not necessarily quality, and they charge a shit ton of money. It's sort of discouraging to be okay, I'm going to adopt new technology just because I know that there's going to be problems with it. Historically speaking, whenever a new product launches, like 3-4 months after launch, the problems start rolling in, and then you have issues like this phone's battery is not working, this phone's ceramic screen is coming off, it's breaking too easy, and so on and so forth. And what ends up happening is that the companies who are selling this new technology, they end up doing new iteration of those technologies or phones or whatever products they have, and they sell them again during the year but at different intervals. So for example, if you buy Q1 phones at launch, you might be worse off than someone who's buying a Q2 or Q3 phone in the same year it's been launched, just because the Q2 and Q3 phone are already went through some iterations and already had some improvements done from a product perspective that are available at the time of purchase for people who are sort of the late majority or the early majority. Obviously for laggards this is not a problem, because laggards will always have their pick of the bunch in a way, because they will be able to either go and say, I'm either not getting the 12 because I'm waiting for 14 or 13, just because they look at these sort of jump periods. Like 11 was a good version. 12 I think is an improvement over the 11 version. But 13 is, from my point of view, most likely the better candidate for purchase than 12. Why? Because 12 has been added, in this case, some stuff which is innovative, which is new, which is interesting, but it's not necessarily there yet. For example, they added the MagSafe. MagSafe is nice, but from what I've seen from reviews, the problem with MagSafe is that it's not strong enough, and I'm super stoked to have just MagSafe, because I'm absolutely sure that the next time Apple is going to do a new phone, which is going to be in 2021, most likely what's going to happen is they're going to remove the charging port altogether, and I'm actually calling on this one. The reason why I think they're going to remove the charging port is because from a design perspective, it makes absolutely all the sense in the world. Especially if you're thinking about the fact that this 12 is a transition phone where you introduce new technology like LiDAR, like magnetic charging, and you just make it a little bit more perfect. You refine it in a later version of your phone, which is probably going to be the 2021 version. Having said that, I think that the reason why they're going to remove the charging port is because it's natural. That charging port is basically just a heritage, sort of an artifact that is there ever since phones still used cables to be charging and didn't have the capacity to be charged via magnetic charging or via coil charging. And the advantage of coil charging over traditional charging with a port is the fact that you can actually increase the phone's IP rating. So you can make it more watertight, you can make it more dust proof, all the good stuff. And I think that's the direction Apple is heading. And why I'm saying this? Well, it's quite simple. The reason why I'm saying this is because iPhones have been notoriously used also in defense, in firefighting, and in all sorts of jobs and conditions where sort of the elements are not with you, they're working against you, and you need to have a phone that's a daily driver that can withstand those sort of situations. And I'm not necessarily talking about Caterpillar phones, because those are based on Android, and I'm not necessarily thinking about having additional cases added to these iPhones and so on, because that's not a long-term solution. However, now that we mentioned this whole case situation, like just think about the fact that having a case which is bulletproof, adding your phone into it and be able to access it, but being able to charge it through that bulletproof case can be a huge advantage for a soldier who's being deployed in Iraq or in a battle scenario. Like, most of the people in the US are using iPhones, and it's clear why they do this, because they have contracts with the mobile providers and they get special rebates for those phones, and there's a lot of advantages of using an iPhone, for example, in that specific situation. So there's a lot of sort of drive towards buying or trading in your old iPhone for a new iPhone. The problem is that Apple, and this is something that really annoys the hell out of me, and a lot of companies which have the same policy, what they tend to do is they say, okay, we're launching this product friggin' worldwide. Oh, but you know what? We're just going to offer support and sort of give the best user experience possible only in specific countries. So it's not available worldwide. So that means that having an Apple store in your sort of country, if you will, is a way to guarantee that people that in that specific country are going to have a better Apple service than people in another country. And this is a problem just because, for example, in our situation, specifically in Romania's case, we cannot go and trade in our old iPhones to get a discount for a new iPhone, which means that if I'm going back and trade in my 6S, I'm not going to get a discount for the new iPhone. And this is sort of a problem for me because that doesn't give me enough incentive to say I'll be an early adopter. Just because I have too much stuff stacked against me of actually going there and trading in that phone and saying, okay, I want to get this iPhone. Because I'm not going to do it. I'm probably going to stick with the old version, with the 11 Pro version, just because the difference is fairly small. And that puts me sort of in the late majority / laggards. And this is sort of the problem with technology nowadays. You can have two ways of thinking at this. Either you're at the head of the game, ahead of the curve, and are the first person that adopts a technology, but you have some risks attached to it, which are that particular product might not be up to standards, might not behave as you expect it to behave, and might have a bunch of issues which are hidden from you. Whereas, if you're using a product which is one generation old, you're going to have the disadvantage of not being able to use the latest technology in the stuff that you have. However, you're going to have the advantage of information as well as the cut price, because let's face it, like, technology is also about price. If you're thinking about technology, you're also thinking about the price of technology. And new technology is always more expensive because there's also the associated investment cost into this new technology as opposed to the old technology, which sort of hopefully wants to die out. And trouble is that in Apple's specific case, that laggards and late majority people are not favored. So Apple favors only people who are in the first part of the curve: innovators, early adopters, and early majority. They want you to be able to get the new iPhone as quickly as possible, just because that way they can ensure a reduced cost on their support side for older stuff. And this is valid for absolutely all of the technology products that are out there. This is the main reason why a lot of companies are forcing you to buy new technology and new products. They don't want to have to deal with the added cost of support for technology they deem to be dead or sort of transitioning out. And this is the main reason why Apple, for example, did not like to support older Macs for such a long time. It's the reason why they have this 5 or 6 year period, correct me if I'm wrong, after which all of the Macs that are being sold are sort of decommissioned. They are being brought down and the OSs are no longer supported, which from my point of view as a consumer is crappy. Like, comparing this with Windows, where you have like absolutely everything is supported or still supported, and XP had such a long life where it's been still used by a lot of people, and it's actually still used in a lot of online sales companies. Yeah, imagine that. However, Apple does not do this just because they know it's an added cost that they want to slice off their list. And if you think about what Apple has been doing lately in terms of cost optimization. They have reduced the cost of the packaging just by having no more headphones, no more chargers, and so on. They have reduced the packaging size, which means that they have more packages in the same containers, which means less shipping costs. Again, cost. If you're thinking about design, cost is very important here. Further down the road, they also remove the charger, which means they can actually sell you that charger if you want to buy it. Having said that, having removed those headphones and the charger, obviously they didn't want to give you those headphones anymore because nobody's actually using them. Everybody's using earpods and so on. Whatever, I can get that. But the charging brick, that's where I have a huge friggin' problem, because they're making this huge assumption that everybody has the newest iPhone, when that's actually a reality only in the US. And I don't think that Apple's strategy includes only the US and the rest of the world can go frig itself off. I don't think that. I think it's quite important for them. And that's what I'm asking myself. If you don't have the same trade-in program in other countries, then why the heck didn't you include the charging brick there? Oh, I know why. Because by not adding it, you will be buying it, which means Apple is adding, instead of adding a cost, it's adding profit to itself. So let's review this. It's adding profit by slicing the cost of shipment, by slicing the cost of the box, by slicing the cost of headphones, and it's also slicing cost by removing older and underused products, or not necessarily underused, because a lot of Macs were still widely used even after they appeared as decommissioned, and still are actually. And I have one of my kids' MacBook is, I think, from 2011, and my wife's from 2010. Whatever, they're old. The point is they're still running. And the thing that bugs me is the fact that Apple did not actually want to support them anymore, but decided to cut them off. And even some, like, I had the 2013 one and I had to like scrap it just because it wasn't supported any longer. Like 2013, that's like 7 years ago. It's not that long. And the processor is different. The difference between processors is not that huge if you think about what it's actually being used for. Obviously, if you use the latest 4K videos and so on, it's going to be a little slow, but not necessarily everyone's using 4K, and not necessarily everyone is being an editor. And to be honest, having a second-hand iMac or a second-hand MacBook Pro is obviously way better than, I don't know, buying an Air that's less performant and it's basically way crappier. So Apple is never actually doing anything that's not increasing its profit values, and by that I mean quite sizably so. And this is the actual problem that's behind early adopters in technology versus the laggards. And it's sort of a really not well understood problem. It's not understood enough in a way. People don't talk about it that much, or really don't understand the actual reasoning behind what certain things happen. I really hated the fact that in that Apple keynote, everybody was like, ooh, they're doing something for the environment. No, they're not. It's all about the cost. And this is what pisses me off, because whenever people want to get an idea across, whenever they want other people's buy-in for something which is not necessarily popular, they get it and they hide it between this righteous idea just to be able to have other people's buy-in, to be able to get their approval. In this specific case, it wasn't something which was noble. It was actually something quite common that was spawned because they wanted to optimize business costs and they wanted to be able to get more profit. And if you're thinking about it, it makes perfect sense just by looking at the financial data that Apple has been consistently putting out lately. Their growth has been off the charts. And the reason for that is because they're consistently slicing costs and they're optimizing those costs so well in order to drive that profit sky high. In sometimes, or actually oftentimes, in our detriment instead of our benefit. And that's sort of the problem. And the way they think is similar and is being used sort of as a template for thought by a lot of different technology companies that are out there. And it sort of bothers me terribly because we as designers and product people in general could have a say in this. And I don't understand why there's such a huge rush to be working at companies which are, instead of putting out products which are decent and okay at least, just try to exploit us financially and make us sort of these slaves for specific devices. I think that's absolutely crap to be able to be part of it, first of all. And second of all, I think we can take a stand or at least boycott it by just not buying the latest technology and just buying the next best thing that comes out. Or at least optimize our costs and make conscious decisions whenever we buy technology, not make impulse decisions. Me personally, I'm probably going to switch back to iOS just because there's this problem that really bugs me about my personal Android phone, and that's the fact that the typing is not really okay. The 4G signal is really off, and I know it's the phone's fault. It's not the carrier's fault, because other people have been using the carrier successfully in the same area as I do. 4G signal is not amazing, and so on and so forth. Plus, I'm using a lot of DJI equipment, and if you're one of those people who know and use DJI drones and gimbals and so on, you know that they have this notoriously bad experience on Android phones as opposed to iOS, which is again something that bugs me, but I would rather be okay with all of the equipment I'm using and making sure that it's working together as perfectly as possible, since I paid that much money for it, instead of being like, oh, this equipment is crap, this equipment is crap, this equipment is crap. Just I've optimized my costs so well in those terms that I didn't think about optimizing my cost even for the phone, because the phone is actually providing the whole experience for all of those products which are part of the ecosystem, if you will. And if you remove the phone from the equation or use a crappier phone, automatically you detract the whole experience from those other products as well. So the phone is quite important here. Unfortunately, Android still hasn't caught up to iOS in a lot of ways, and it's probably never going to. But that's the difference when sort of you give out the operating system for free, as opposed to make it part of your charging cycle, which is like iOS's case, where the iOS the operating system is sort of built into the hardware and it's being charged as part of a package experience rather than something separate. And on that note, I want to thank you for listening to this episode, and hopefully you'll be able to subscribe or share with some friends if you like this episode. I'm also happy to see you comment if you want to. Would really love that and see people engage with the content more often. If you fancy it, that's not a problem. If you don't, that's fine. I'm happy for you to have lent me your ear for half an hour and for bearing with me as we've navigated this sea of technology for a little while. Have an amazing evening, guys, and hear each other in the next episode. Until then, bye bye.